Why is Israel going into Rafah? Here are 3 reasons you should know about. Number 1, to eliminate Hamas. Number 2, to bring about the release of the hostages. And number 3, to make sure Hamas will never pose a threat to Israel ever again. So let's unpack this. First, Rafah is the last stronghold of Hamas. 4 battalions of terrorists and their leaders are hiding there. They just recently launched a deadly rocket attack from Rafah, killing 4 Israeli soldiers and wounding several others near the Kerem Shalom crossing. That's where humanitarian aid enters Gaza, but only when Hamas isn't launching rockets at it. Let's not forget that these Hamas terrorist leaders are the same people who planned and executed the mass murder of Israeli civilians on October 7th. In response to that massacre, Israel vowed to destroy Hamas as a military and ruling power. Boots on the ground in Rafah are necessary to achieve that goal. Number 2, after Hamas continued to make unacceptable proposals in return for a hostage deal, Israel was left with little alternative but to invade Rafah and use military pressure to achieve that goal. It's also likely that Hamas are hiding a bunch of hostages in Rafah. In February, the Israeli army rescued 2 hostages from a house in Rafah. So if Israeli troops now enter the city, similar operations may follow. And number 3, Hamas have used Rafah for years as a launch pad for attacks against Israel. They're able to smuggle weapons and other resources under the Egyptian border into Rafah. If Hamas were left intact in Rafah, they'd be able to continue to attack Israeli civilians even if they weren't able to rule Gaza. Not to mention the fact that terrorists in Rafah are continuing to use Gazan civilians as human shields. Israel's now trying to persuade those civilians to move away from the conflict zone.
I hate Hamas first and foremost. They brought this on us. This is not jihad. This is not resistance. Go resist at the border. Don't resist between the buildings and the people. They're destroying the people.
The truth remains that entering Rafah is the only way to ensure that Hamas will never pose a threat to Israel ever again. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time until the next October 7th.